Hello my dear crystal lovers, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is AM. I am a small business owner in Copenhagen and I have a web shop at AVIUVI.com where you can go and find the most amazing, ethically sourced, spectacular crystals from all over the world, and I will leave you a link for it in the description below. We are still on holiday, but I definitely wanted to take some time out to do a short vlogcast for you guys this week. I've called this vlogcast Times Are Changing because, well, times really are changing. Of course, they are always changing, and technically all we ever have is the present moment. But for the sake of honoring this human life experience, I'll plant both of my feet on the ground and tune into this linear time experience that we have here. One of the best tools to understand linear time here on our beautiful planet is astronomy and astrology. Ours are illustrated by our planet rotating around itself, and seasons are illustrated by our rotation around the sun, our moon illustrating the ebb and flow, the planets in our solar system showing us the relativity of our own time-space reality. And when astronomers look into the furthest distance of the universe, they see our past. So we find ourselves in a clockwork. Astronomy is the science, but astrology is more like the collected empirical data on how we individually and collectively experience living in this clockwork. The reason why planets in our solar systems have an impact on us is still a mystery, and astrology is still a mystery. A birth chart is a fingerprint of the time when you were born, and my understanding is that the exact time and place of your birth is not random, but a deliberate creation from your vantage point before you came here, and a good astrologer might be able to interpret that particular roadmap that was laid out and the options available for you. There's also a toolbox of skills that we come in with, the ones that we have no apparent reason for having. We're the creators with an intention, and that's what we've set up before we came into this experience. But life automatically inspires us to have new intentions through the experiences that we have here. We get more clear on what we do want and what we don't want, and that changes over time. That's why the energy of astrology might feel relevant to you and not to others, and more or less relevant in certain times in your life. And I strongly encourage that if you feel that astrological information is holding you back from creating, then just drop it. In that case, it doesn't serve you, but if it inspires you to follow your natural ebbs and flows, contract and expand, focus yourself on aspects that feel good to you, and remind you that you've had an intention with your life on Earth before you arrived here, then astrology has a purpose. In that way, you can see astrology as a guideline, a display of possibilities and choices. Life is a creative, expansive process, and even though you have a roadmap, you always still have free will. The astrological phenomenon I want to talk with you about today is the North Node and the South Node. These are not planets, but how the sun and the moon relates to one another on an axis. So this is a little bit more technical, but I hope you can follow, because this is where we will experience the solar and lunar eclipses. The North Node represents what we're moving towards, what will expand, and the South Node, what we are moving away from and what is contracting. I have found that the North and the South Node are really good predictors of the collective consciousness, what we are collectively moving towards and what we're leaving behind in an 18-month time period. So if you want to know what the flavor of the next year and a half is going to be like, the North Node and the South Node are, in my experience, really great for that. They're, of course, not the only astrological factors. For example, Pluto, I think, plays a really significant and impactful role these years. So the nodes really are mostly about the zeitgeist in an 18-month time period. The North Node has just moved into Aries and the South Node into Libra. All signs have different themes and impact us in general, collectively, but also more specifically based on your individual birth chart. And all signs have quote-unquote good and bad sides to them. However, I prefer to see them more as well-developed and underdeveloped, kind of like maturity and immaturity. So we're moving towards the Aries energy. And with Aries, the immature version would look something like selfishness and brattiness and kind of a me-first attitude. It's also aggression and fighting. And by the way, some of the people that I love the most have really strong Aries placements. So it's not to say that Aries are bad in any way, but there are mature and immature behaviors associated with all signs. A more mature version of Aries is decisiveness, setting clear boundaries, and forward movement. If you know anyone who has a strong Aries placement, you know that they are quick moving, they're direct, and they will always make clear to you what they want and what they don't want. Me personally, I love that, and I never have to guess what goes on inside their heads, because they will clearly express whatever goes on inside of them. So if that's a side of you that you wish to develop, no matter if you have any Aries placements or not, now is a great time to do that, because the North Node is in Aries. So this is the North Node, the direction that we're collectively moving in over the next year and a half. The South Node is in Libra, so that is what we're moving away from. Libra, on the other hand, is about harmony and balance and peacekeeping. And what is so bad about that, you might ask? Well, the immature version is saying yes, even though you mean no. It is people-pleasing. It is compromising instead of standing up for what is right for you. So if this is you and this is something that you're dealing with and something that you want to work on, this would be a perfect time to work on letting go of that. Collectively, the North Node in Aries has a tendency to be quite impactful, and I'll give you a few examples. So in 1986 and in 1987, we had the Chernobyl disaster, and we had the Wall Street crash called Black Monday. But in more recent times, in 2005, that was the last time that the North Node was in Aries, we had the absolutely insane war in Iraq. We had the London bombings, the bird flu. We also had the Indonesian earthquake and Asian tsunami, Hurricane Katrina, major earthquake in Pakistan. So I was around 20 years old at that time. So I clearly remember all of it, and it was a pretty intense time with a lot of aggression, systems breaking down, a lot of war, natural disasters. Collectively, there seemed to be a lack of focus and a general impatience, especially towards other people. There was especially an emphasis on military development, and history seems to be repeating itself this time around again. It was also a time for new beginnings and forward movement and individual power. For example, in 2005, both Facebook and YouTube launched. But I'm not gonna lie, looking back, it was a really insane time in history. So how do we deal with this, again, in the highest possible way? Well, I have a few suggestions, of course. First of all, clearing out our vessels, our bodies, is a great way to start. Personally, I clean up my diet, I prioritize meditation, and I make sure to recharge out in nature. All really good baseline practices that detoxifies and clears the body and mind. Physical movement like dance or martial arts is also a really good way to work with this active energy in a really constructive way. Because the Aries energy is action-oriented and powerful, I think it's extra important to stay more balanced than usual. We want to insist on holding a steady, positive vibration, aligning with the best possible outcome in any given situation. So the next year and a half, when you experience someone stepping over the line, you know how to set clear boundaries. You're not vague or confused about what your values are, and holding a strong and courageous resistance when it's necessary. The highest expression of Aries is empowering. It's about independence, claiming your rights, and standing up for what you believe in with confidence. Some of the Libra-related areas that we will be letting go of is, for example, not trying to please everybody. For example, also dimming your truth to avoid offending others or hurting their feelings. I definitely feel that that's something that we're gonna drop like a hot potato. So avoid negotiating to make everyone happy, but express the truth in the way that you see it, and leave it to others to decide what they're gonna conclude. And don't expect cooperation. It's not always given that we all agree on everything. So in many ways, I'm actually really optimistic about this phase. And if you want to see how the North Node and the South Node affects your personal chart, you can look that up at astro.com. So I want to say thank you so much for listening to this vlogcast. I just really felt like giving you guys an update because I think it's a big deal, and I think it's important that we are prepared going into this phase. Astrology is just one of the spiritual tools that I personally rely on in my everyday life, but I'm not an expert, and I will link some of my favorite astrologers here on YouTube and on Instagram in the description below, so you can go and check them out. So if you enjoyed this vlogcast, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps me to know what you guys want me to talk about, and it also helps others to find this content if that is what they're looking for. And I want to wish you the most amazing day with so much love to you and to yours.